I'm Henny B, and welcome to the World War I Stories podcast, where history comes alive through the voices of those who lived it. Some scenes in these stories may be too graphic for sensitive listeners, so listener discretion is advised. Today's episode, In the Colonial Shadows. He fidgeted when he was anxious, and right now he couldn't stop even if he tried. Summoned to the district commissioner's office without any explanation, his mind raced with possibilities. Ahmed Khan was the munshi for the small village of Gulabpur, a picturesque community nestled at the base of the rolling Aravalli hills in India. Known for its lush green fields and vibrant flower gardens, Gulabpur was a serene contrast to the tension Ahmad felt mounting within him. As the munshi, Ahmed held a position of significant responsibility. He was the village's chief scribe and record keeper, a role that required meticulous attention to detail and a strong sense of duty. He managed land records, tax collections, and correspondence with the British authorities, ensuring that everything ran smoothly. It was a respected position, one that required both literacy and trustworthiness, qualities not commonly found in every villager. Ahmed had earned his role through years of dedicated service and education. Unlike many in Gulabpur, he had been fortunate enough to attend a local school where he excelled in reading, writing, and arithmetic. His father, a farmer with a keen sense of the importance of education, had recognized Ahmed's potential early on and had made sacrifices to ensure his son could learn. When the previous munshi retired, Ahmed was the natural choice to succeed him. His reputation for fairness and diligence had spread throughout the village and even reached the ears of the British officials. He had proven himself capable of navigating the delicate balance between serving his community and complying with the demands of the colonial administration. Yet today, as he sat in silence in the dimly lit waiting room of the district commissioner's office, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The eerie silence was broken by the clerk at the desk, dressed in full military regalia. "Captain Pembroke will see you now, Mr. Khan." "Thank you," replied Ahmed as he stood and made his way to the door. The clerk responded with a curt nod and went back to reading a field manual in silence. The office of Captain Henry Pembroke was a drastic contrast from the dimly lit, dingy waiting room. Two large picture windows let in a copious amount of light. Maps adorned the walls as well as citations and medals. Captain Pembroke sat behind a desk, smiling at Ahmed as he entered. He pointed to an adjacent chair. "Please, have a seat. Would you like something to drink, Mr. Khan?" Even though his throat was extremely dry, Ahmed felt that accepting a drink would put him in a position where he needed to return a favor. "No, thank you, sir. I'll be okay." "Suit yourself. So it says here you're the munshi for the village of Gulabpur. That's a very important position. Congratulations." "Thank you, sir. I was reluctant to do it at first, but many in the village recommended me, so here I am," he replied. "Mr. Khan, I'm going to be straight with you today because, frankly, I do not have the time to mince words. As you know, we're at war," Captain Pembroke began. "Britain is at war, sir," Ahmed replied calmly. "And as a British colony, you are British subjects. That makes India at war too. But I digress. We are at war, and being at war requires men. The government refuses to enact conscription here in India, unlike in other countries, so that's where we need you. You know, Mr. Khan, the Empire relies on men like you to keep the wheels turning. It's a delicate balance managing the needs of the villagers and the expectations of the crown." "Yes, sir. I understand the importance of my duties." "Good, because I have an important task for you." Pembroke's voice took on a harder edge. "The war in Europe is escalating. We need more recruits from villages like Gulabpur. Young men, fit and able, to join the British Indian Army." Ahmed's heart sank. "Sir, our village has already given many young men to the war effort. Families are struggling without their sons and fathers. And we are sympathetic to their plight, but none of that will matter if we lose this war. You do understand that, don't you?" Pembroke's eyes bore into Ahmed's. Ahmed found a boost of confidence and leaned in. Sir, with all due respect, if Britain loses this war, we most likely will gain independence. The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of Ahmed's words hanging in the air. Pembroke's expression hardened, his jaw tightening. You tread on dangerous ground, Mr. Khan, Pembroke said slowly, his voice a low growl. Your loyalty to the crown is not just a matter of duty, it's a matter of survival. Do not forget that. Ahmed held his gaze, feeling the tension simmer between them. I am loyal to my people first, sir. Their survival is my duty. Pembroke leaned back in his chair, his fingers intertwined behind his head. Now we're talking, Mr. Khan. Their survival definitely depends on your decision here today. Ahmed stood abruptly, shocked. Is that a threat? Pembroke leaned forward. Take it however you wish. Let's just say that it is in yours and your entire village's best interest to perform the tasks assigned to you today. Oh, and before you can tell me that you cannot find anyone to serve, your quota is 50. I need 50 men from your village. The government is granting any man that volunteers to serve 5 full acres of land for his family. Ahmed laughed aloud. You offer land, but take the men that would work that land. Pembroke scowled as he looked on. You've heard the terms. You're dismissed. Ahmed was still laughing as he walked out. Over the next few weeks, Ahmed visited every household in Gulapur. He loved visiting the people anyway, so he figured he could kill 2 birds with one stone. Visit everyone and recruit where he could. To his surprise, he was able to recruit 50 men quite quickly. The offer of land was very enticing to the people, regardless of the risk. Many men felt they were giving their family a legacy, whether they survived the war or not. Today was deployment day, the day in which he would travel with his recruits to the commissioner's office, where the recruits would report for duty. The walk was long, but the men were in good spirits. None of them seemed worried about the war. They were more excited about the land their families were going to be granted. As he looked at the men, he saw fathers, sons, uncles, and others who just had nothing better to do. It was a very bittersweet moment. He had accomplished his goal, but there were men here he would never see again. Upon reaching the district commissioner's office, the men lined up, their expressions a mix of pride and determination. Captain Pembroke stood waiting, his stern gaze sweeping over the group. He nodded in approval as Ahmed approached. You've done well here, Mr. Khan. What have we? 50 men on the nose? Ahmed stood with pride as he recounted to Pembroke that he had 52 men. 2 men had joined them just as they were marching out of the village. Pembroke raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. 52, you say? That's quite remarkable, Mr. Khan. Seems the promise of land was a powerful motivator. Ahmed nodded. Yes, sir. For many of these men, it represents a future for their families. A legacy they can leave behind. Pembroke's expression softened slightly. Very well. These men will be processed and prepared for deployment. You've exceeded expectations, Mr. Khan. Pembroke turned and walked into the office. A clerk appeared shortly after, his demeanor brisk and efficient. Men, please line up here, he instructed, pointing at the door and down the steps. In a single-file line, we will process your paperwork and get you started. The men did as they were told, forming a line that snaked down the steps and into the courtyard. Over the next hour and a half, they entered the building as villagers and exited it as British colonial soldiers. Each man emerged with a new uniform, a sense of duty etched on their faces, and a small booklet containing their orders and identification. Ahmed stood aside, watching the process unfold with a mix of pride and apprehension. He could have left, but he wanted to stay. He wanted to show his support for the men that he had recruited, to let them know that they would not be forgotten, at least not by him. When the last man exited the office, Captain Pembroke appeared once again, his authoritative presence immediately commanding attention. Men, please, may I have your attention, he called out, his voice firm but respectful. The men, who had been gathered in small groups around the yard, quickly formed a single crowd, their faces turned towards the captain. They stood with a mixture of anticipation and solemnity, ready to hear what he had to say. He cleared his throat and looked over the men. First, I want to thank you, and your king wishes to thank you. He paused for a moment, perhaps expecting applause or some sign of enthusiasm. Ahmed observed the scene, feeling a flicker of amusement. If Captain Pembroke expected a rousing reaction to the mention of the king's gratitude, it was clear he knew little about the citizens of India. The men stood in respectful silence, their faces a mix of determination and quiet resolve, but no outward show of loyalty to a distant monarch. Pembroke adjusted his tone, sensing the mood of the crowd. You are now the Gallipore POW Battalion. You will serve together. You will find glory together. You will make your country proud together. Ahmed had learned that Britain liked to assign men of the same village or town into POW battalions. It allowed the men to serve together, side by side with people they knew, and from what Ahmed had gathered, it had been miraculous for morale. The sense of camaraderie and mutual support was palpable among the men, and the idea of serving alongside familiar faces gave them a sense of comfort and strength. Pembroke continued, This battalion is not just a group of soldiers, it is a brotherhood. You will look out for one another, you will fight for one another, and you will share in each other's victories and hardships. The bonds you form here will be unbreakable. Ahmed continued to look on as men seemed to swell with pride, and even he felt comfort knowing that these men would serve side by side. It was then, when the sound of vehicles was noticed, each man turning towards the noise as 6 transport vehicles pulled into the front of the office. Pembroke spoke again. Please split into 5 groups of 9 and 1 group of 5. We will load 9 per truck with the last 5 plus supplies in another. Ahmed watched as the men did as they were told, their movements efficient and orderly. Within 20 minutes, the groups were formed and the men began to board the vehicles. 5 minutes later, the engines came to life, and he looked on as the vehicles turned around and drove away, taking the lifeblood of Gulipur with them. Over the coming weeks, Ahmed continued to visit the families of every man that had been dispatched to war, those he recruited, and the ones that had left before he had been tasked with the endeavor. In all, the families were calm as they waited for any word on their loved ones and the land he had promised them on behalf of the British government. One evening, Ahmed sat with the family of Rajesh, a young man who had eagerly volunteered. Rajesh's mother, Leela, served him a cup of chai, her hands trembling slightly as she poured. Have you heard anything, Ahmed? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ahmed shook his head, offering a reassuring smile. Not yet, Leila. But no news is good news, they say. The British are efficient with their correspondence. We will hear soon. Leila nodded, trying to muster a smile. Rajesh was so excited about the land, he said it would change our lives. It will, Ahmed affirmed, and your son is brave. He is doing something noble, something that will be remembered. As he left their home, the weight of his promise felt heavier. He wondered when the British would fulfill their promises about the land. Did they have to wait until after the war? He needed to ask. The next day, he made his way back to the commissioner's office. Again, he waited in the dimly lit waiting room, waiting for Pembroke to have the time to see him. The minutes felt like hours, and the silence was punctuated only by the occasional rustle of papers from the clerk's desk. Finally, the door to Captain Pembroke's office creaked open, and the clerk beckoned him in. Captain Pembroke will see you now, Mr. Khan. Ahmed took a deep breath and entered the office, the bright light from the windows momentarily blinding him. Pembroke looked up from his desk, an eyebrow raised in curiosity. Mr. Khan, back so soon. What can I do for you? Pembroke asked, gesturing for Ahmed to sit. Ahmed chose to remain standing as he spoke. Captain, the villagers would like to know the whereabouts, or even the status of the Gallipore Pals Battalion. Pembroke looked up with his hard eyes. Their whereabouts is classified information, Mr. Khan, but I can assure you that over the last month, there has been no fatalities or even injuries in the battalion. If there has been, I would have known. Please let the villagers know that so far their loved ones are safe and making the king proud. Ahmed felt a wave of relief wash over him, but he knew the villagers would need more than just words to ease their worries. Thank you, Captain. I will convey your message to the families. It will bring them some comfort to know that their loved ones are safe. Pembroke nodded curtly. Is there anything else, Mr. Khan? There was, sir. The villagers would also like to know when the land grants will be allocated. Will that be happening soon, or do they have to wait until after the war? Pembroke laughed, a harsh, mirthless sound that sent a chill down Ahmed's spine. Land grants? There are no land grants, Mr. Khan. Ahmed's heart sank. What do you mean? I promised them land. You told me to promise them land. We do whatever we can to get recruits here. If I have to tell a little white lie to get it done, then so be it, Pembroke replied, his tone dismissive. Ahmed felt a surge of anger and betrayal. He had trusted Pembroke's word, had convinced his fellow villagers to trust it too. You cannot be serious. These families are counting on that promise. They have sacrificed their sons and fathers based on what you've told them. Pembroke's expression hardened. And they are serving the Empire, which is what matters. The reality of war is harsh, Mr. Khan. Promises are made and broken as needed. Ahmed clenched his fist, struggling to keep his composure. You have put me in an impossible position, Captain. I have to face these families. I have to look them in the eye. Pembroke shrugged, clearly indifferent to Ahmed's plight. That's your problem, not mine. Now, if there's nothing else, you're dismissed. As he made his way back to Gullapore, the weight of the lies he had been forced to tell pressed heavily on him. Would the villagers believe that he had been lied to as well? Or would they implicate him in the lie itself, knowing that he was the one who had delivered the promise? The uncertainty gnawed at him, each step feeling heavier than the last. Being under British rule was a cold mistress, he thought, and he hoped that someday it would end. This was just another example of how their cruelty knew no bounds. As he walked, his mind raced with the possible courses of action he could take. Should he call a meeting and tell everyone what he had learned? Should he wait it out until the war was over and play ignorant when the promise was never fulfilled? Or should he simply leave the village, disappearing without a trace? People would wonder why he left, and eventually they would learn the truth. Ahmed reached the outskirts of the village and stopped, staring at the familiar landscape that had always brought him comfort. Now it felt like a prison of unfulfilled promises and shattered trust. He knew he had to decide, and quickly. The hustle and bustle of the War Office in New Delhi was a stark contrast to the quiet, troubled village of Gullapore. Lieutenant James Cartwright, a young but diligent officer, received Ahmed in an office where he read a letter written on behalf of the villagers, representing their collective grievance. As he read it, his brow furrowed in concern. He took the letter, motioned for Ahmed to follow, and walked briskly down the corridor, stopping in front of a heavy wooden door. He knocked firmly. "Enter," came the authoritative voice from within. Cartwright opened the door and stepped into the office of General Harris, a seasoned and stern military leader. The general looked up from his desk, his eyes sharp and inquisitive. "Lieutenant Cartwright, what is it?" General Harris asked. Without even introducing Ahmed, Cartwright handed the letter to the general. General Harris took the letter and began to read. As his eyes scanned the contents, his expression remained unchanged. He glanced at Ahmed. "Who's this?" Ahmed stepped forward. "I am Ahmed Khan, the munshi of Gullapore." Harris laid the letter on the desk and tapped his fingers together as he leaned back in his chair. "You represent the village?" Ahmed stood up straight, his pride apparent. "I do, sir." "And does this letter represent the opinion of everyone in the village?" This question made Ahmed very nervous. What was the point of asking this, he asked himself. "The majority, sir. There were a few who had no opinion on the matter." "It's funny that you bring this letter to me." "It really is, considering that I'm the one who gave the order. You think Pembroke does anything without my say-so? If anything, I should court-martial him for telling you it was a lie." His demeanor was calm and cold as he picked up the letter again and displayed it to Ahmed. "This was a mistake, my friend." He looked up at Lieutenant Cartwright. take him into custody for sedition, then take him down to the village so he can watch you arrest every inhabitant, and then burn the village to the ground. This has been World War I Stories. Thank you for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show wherever you find this podcast, and don't forget to throw us a rating. Join our Facebook community by searching and liking the official World War I Stories page. You can also join me on Blue Sky, where I go by the handle WW1Stories_NEB. World War I Stories is now featured on Rabbit in Red Radio, with new episodes streaming Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. They also have all episodes available on demand. Visit rabbitinredradio.com for this and many other independent podcasts. And last but not least, would you like your name read on the show? Become a producer by contributing to our Patreon at patreon.com/World War I Stories. I am very grateful to everyone who downloads and listens to this show. I'm Henny B. See you next time on World War I Stories.